Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Brad. Welcome back to another episode of the Book Report, my weekly check-in where I come and hang out and let you all know what I've been reading. But also want this to be a conversation. I want to hear from you guys and what you all have been reading this week as well. And it's August now. I can't believe it's August already. This year has flown by. It feels like it should be April, but we're into August already. So I'm going to talk about my July reading wrap-up. And again, I want to hear what you read this week. I also want to hear what you read in July. What good books did you read in July? For me, I only read 3 books, but one of them was a monster of a book. It was almost 900 pages, and I really enjoyed pretty much everything I read in July, even though it was only 3 books. We'll go into that. I'll try to be brief with each one since I've talked about these books in previous videos. But first up, I read City on Fire by Don Winslow. This is a mob story. If you are a fan of The Sopranos, I think you'll really dig this book. It takes place in the late 80s in Rhode Island, in this small little Rhode Island town. And we have the Irish mob and the Italian mob. And they're kind of friends. They kind of, deal with each other. They go to like the summer cookout together and all that kind of stuff. But there's this one incident that kind of sets them off against each other, pits them one against the other, and has this ensuing mob war that takes place basically throughout the remainder of the book, where they're killing each other off and trying to take each other's territory and stuff. All basically started over a girl is how it started out. But our main character, Danny Ryan, this is book 1 in a trilogy. I can't remember if I said that or not. The Danny Ryan trilogy. Danny Ryan, he's part of the Irish mob, and he's trying to do what he can do to protect his friends and his family and try to stop the violence before it escalates too far, even though it does escalate and escalate. I really dug this book. It was awesome. I'm really looking forward to reading more the other 2 books in this trilogy. But this was City on Fire by Don Winslow, book 1 of the Danny Ryan trilogy. Again, if you're a fan of The Sopranos or just the mob and the mafia in general, check this one out. I think you'll really dig that one. Next up, and this one took up about 2 weeks of my time in July, so about half the month, but it was definitely worth it. This is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. This is a big chunker of a book. It's about 900 pages, and there was a lot of hype going into this book. And did it live up to the hype? Yes, it did. I love this book. It was awesome. This book was a journey. It was epic. It's a Western. And I said this before, and it's the cliche thing to say, but I'm going to say it again. It was less about the journey and more about the friends we made along, or it was less about the destination and more about the friends we made along the way. This book had excellent characters. Augustus McCrae, Woodrow Call, Newt, Dietz, Lorena, a whole plethora of characters. It was awesome. I just loved living in this world with the characters. The destination to me didn't really matter in this book, where the characters were kind of driving to. It's a cattle drive from Texas up to Montana, and it didn't really matter if they got to Montana or if they ended up in Nebraska or Kansas or whatever. I was just along for the ride with the characters and what they were experiencing as they went along on this journey. Like I said, it was awesome. I guess I haven't read too many Westerns, but I guess it's fair to say this is my favorite Western of all time. I really want to read the other books in the series. This is actually book 3. There's 2 books before this and then one after one. The last one's called, I don't remember, and I'm not going to go into it because you all can look it up and find out what it is. Streets of Laredo is what the last book is called. Comanche Moon, I think, is book 2, and Dead Man's Walk might be book 1. I can't say for sure, but I definitely want to read the other books in this series. I think these characters will stick with me for a very, very long time. This book was awesome. Definitely worth the time investment into it. If you haven't read it already, I highly suggest you do so. This is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry, and this was by far, as much as I really liked City on Fire, this is by far my favorite read for the month of July. And the final book I read was October Animals by Nicholas Day. This is an advanced reader copy, so I'll pop up the real cover on screen. It's a short novella. I wanted something between Lonesome Dove and my next read, which was Project Hail Mary. I wanted something to break it up, something short and sweet. So I read that one, and that book was okay. I really liked the writing style. The prose was really good, but the story was very strange. It takes place in the town of October, Illinois, and right around Halloween time, where our main character and her friends, they kind of plan to rob the local Halloween store on Halloween, and use that money to kind of escape because they don't have the best lives. That's what the synopsis said, but that wasn't really what the story was about. Like they kind of thought of that idea up, but the story was about something else completely indifferent. Um, and the author's note, it talked about he had this idea for what if death was a superpower, and that's kind of what this story was. Him trying to kind of make death a superpower, not where you have the power to to cause death, inflict death on others, but the power that death has and how that affects other people. And I didn't really get that while I was reading it, but after I read the author's note, I can kind of see how that played out in the story. It was good. It was fine. Like I said, the writing was really good. The story was kind of weird for me, a little too far out there for me, but it was good. That one was October Animals by Nicholas Day. So after that, I did start. That's everything I read in July, by the way. Those 3 books. Again, Lonesome Dove, my favorite book of the month by far for July. After I finished October Animals, I did start Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I read most of this in July. I finished it up earlier today. I had like 150 pages I read this month in August. I had like 70 pages left starting today. And so this book, this is the title of the video as well. Does Project Hail Mary live up to the hype? Because this book is so hyped up. So many people talk about how amazing it is. It's always on people's social media lists about always recommending it, like must read this book. Did it live up to the hype? For me, an unpopular opinion, it did not live up to the hype. I will say it was good. I did enjoy the book, but it was nowhere near as great as other people say it is, or other people's experiences with it were not the same as my own. Again, I did think it was good. I really enjoyed the first half of the book, where, and I'll try not to say too much about it because I went into it blind, and I think going into it blind is the best. The only thing I knew about the book was that it took place in space. Other than that, I knew nothing about it. So I'll try to keep it as spoiler-free as I can. But the first half of the book, I really enjoy because there's a mystery there. Something is happening to our son, and they don't know what's going on. And it's the mystery of trying to find out what's going on and why that's going on, and just, trying to figure that out. And I really enjoyed that mystery in the first half of the book. And then once they figure that out, they create Project Hail Mary, the spaceship, to go out into space and try to come up with maybe a conclusion to fix this problem. And that part wasn't as interesting to me as the mystery was at the beginning, finding out what's going on and what's causing this. This book was a little too long. I felt like it could have been shorter. It did start to drag in the middle towards the end for me. And I think that is because, and I don't want to say nothing happens, because things happen, but like Lonesome Dove, you could also say nothing happens, but things are happening. So I'm not a type of reader where I need a lot of action to propel the plot forward and be enticed by that. Because Lonesome Dove, there's not that much action in there, but the characters were really great in Lonesome Dove. And in this one, I didn't love the characters. Again, they're good. They were fine characters. Our main character, Ryland Grace, but I felt like he was kind of just one-dimensional. He didn't have a lot going on for him, at least for me. He was a school teacher who was also interested in science. He really cared about his students. But other than that, he didn't have a ton going on. He didn't have really any other friends or relationships. So he didn't have a ton of emotional baggage, behind him for this mission that he's going on. Again, I don't want to say too much about it, but for me, kind of was a bit flat. Like, I didn't dislike him, but I wasn't super emotionally invested in him as a character, where I was concerned where if he was going to live or if he was going to die. Like, that didn't really matter too much to me. And that sounds bad to say, but I think that's why this book kind of lulled for me some, because I was way more interested in the plot than I was the characters in this book. And the plot, there's a lot of plot at the beginning, and then it's very kind of slow in the middle, where there's a lot of sciencing and doing a bunch of experiments and stuff to kind of push the plot forward. And that kind of drug for me. Although I did really like the ending. I will say the ending, what happens there, I did really like, especially the last chapter. I like the conclusion. The conclusion that we get, we think we can, figure out what happened from what happens at the end of the book, being very vague. But I did like how it ended up. I am glad I read it. There was a lot of hype behind it. Overall, like I said, it was good. I've read a lot better sci-fi. I've read a lot worse sci-fi. This is kind of middle of the road for me. For me, I would not put it on a must-read recommendation list, but it is a solid read. There's really nothing bad about it. I'm honestly surprised that this book is so popular that I feel like just kind of general audiences really enjoy this book, which is kind of surprising with how slow it is kind of in the middle parts. But, that's neither here nor there. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. If you love this book, I'm not saying you're wrong. For me, it was good, but not as great as others say it is with their opinions. But Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, I did like it enough where I would read Andy Weir's other books. I would read The Martian, and I think his other book is called Artemis. I don't know anything about Artemis, but I do know what the plot of The Martian is, and kind of the major plot points kind of feel like they might be similar to this, as far as trying to survive in space might kind of be like the same framework as this in a way. I don't know. I'll have to read The Martian and find out. But I read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Did it live up to the hype? For me, no, but it was still a good read. And then that's everything I read in July. That's why I finished reading this week, was Project Hail Mary. I've been working on that one. So what am I going to read next? So next up, I'm going to dive into the Spinebreakers book club pick for this quarter, the third quarter. So what is it? July, August, and September. And that book is King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby. This is his newest thriller. It just recently came out, I think beginning of July, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember for sure. Hasn't been out for very long. But I've been seeing a lot of praise for this book. It sounds really good. It takes place in Virginia. I think a lot of his books take place in Virginia. I think that might be where Cosby's from. But it's about a character. He's going home to his family. Is it funeral home? Crematorium, I think it is. The crematorium they run. And I think his sister or his brother kind of has gotten in debt with some criminals. It's maybe a biker gang, the mafia, something kind of like that. And they kind of have to figure out what's going on. And then kind of in the background, I think there's the mystery of it's either the disappearance of his mom or the death of his mom when they were younger. Anyway, it sounds really good. Like I said, people have been giving it a lot of praise. I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be my next read. This is King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby. If you're interested in joining in the book club, the link to the Discord's down in the comments below, where we will be discussing this book. Like I said, I'll be diving into this one next. Other than that, I think that's everything I've got. Hope everyone had a great week. Hope everyone had a great reading month in July. Hope August is just as good, or if you didn't have a good July, hope August is even better. But that's all I've got for you guys today. So appreciate you hanging out, spending your time with me. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.